Hello, everyone. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to McDuff Lives. And a special welcome to our guest today, Hrvoje Morić, who's been kind enough to talk to me once a month now for about a year. And I get to really explore how far I can reach into different areas because Hrvoje and I have a lot in common, but we also have been studying a whole lot of different things. And so I'm going to ask Hrvoje, how are you today, of course, and welcome to the show. And what's your big issue that you number one on your mind today, Hrvoje?
Well, a couple of things. LinkedIn is kind of funny. My LinkedIn page is growing for my podcast,
Oh,
nearing 3,000 followers. And
I'm not
it's
even
more
doing LinkedIn. Should I do LinkedIn?
if you feel like it. But I've got a Geopolitics and Empire LinkedIn page, and there's a lot of more professionals use LinkedIn more,
Yeah.
and you can tell that there's this thirst for true knowledge. No one's buying the narrative anymore. And I'm
Uh-huh.
posting stuff, podcasts, and news constantly that challenges the official narrative, and every people are sharing it, and it's growing. I think this is one definite trend we can see now. Just people aren't buying it, but the censors, and I got like my second takedown on LinkedIn, and this time it said, um, it's interesting how they do this. It says your page's post does not comply with our policies. Here's what happened. Our automated systems, right? This is the algorithm ghetto. Our automated systems sounds like Skynet or Terminator detected that your page's post does not comply with our professional community policies and misinfo. Your LinkedIn account, it says it could lead to your LinkedIn account being restricted or your page being restricted. And it's like, I don't even care. Okay, whatever, losers, And I posted a clip of my recent guest, who's a lieutenant colonel, 28 years, served his country. And this is how he and I are treated. And the quote he's saying, this is what he said in the clip that I posted, 1 minute clip. He said,
Give us his name.
Chris Kelzer, readyhusband.com is his website. He says all these things that were told in the media by the governments, they're lies. COVID, lie. You know,
Uh-oh.
the the, the,
Uh-oh.
the injection thing, lies. Ukraine, Putin is Hitler, lie. And so it's just like, where is this freedom that I hear every day from Washington and Brussels and London and Europe, European Union, Canada, Ottawa? Our democracy, a democracy. I'm like, what are you talking about? Stop lying. Let's just take off the mask and say we're in a dictatorship. That's what I would prefer, And so that's kind of like right out of the bat what I'm thinking of this morning. Plus,
You
over the weekend, the Moscow attacks. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get to the Moscow attacks, but just quickly back. I mean, the well, you know what? My thought just went away. So let's talk a bit about the Moscow attacks. What a horrible tragedy, huh?
Yeah, I was on a guest on Monday on TNT Radio. I was a guest this time, no longer a host, but on Johnny Vedmore's show, he's a new host there, and talking about that. And it's difficult to make sense of it, but I think automatically our de facto view is that it's some type of deep event, some type of false flag operation.
Yeah.
I always default to it's state terrorism. Again, going back to, come on, like there's just some random jihadis. Like it doesn't make sense, even from a jihadist perspective at all. Like just
Well,
some
he was
random.
going to get a 500,000 rubles, man. That's a lot of rubles.
Yeah, but then he's not even a jihadi. He's just some guy, who wants money. So who, again, as Putin said, who put him up to it.
He's
And
not even a jihadi.
no, he's not. He's like, I just did
Part
it
of
for the
that.
money. Like, okay, not even for the ideology. And so it's clear. But I don't think the Russians there's no good guys here. So Russia carries out state terror, um, as does the West. So for now, it seems to be more signs point to the West. But I don't know if you've had time to look at it.
Well, no, I haven't, but I do follow George Webb fairly closely. And on his Twitter, he's posted, I think, a pretty solid theory. And this has to do with the fight between the Clintons and Trumps going back to 2013, when Trump was somehow invited to go to Moscow for the Miss Universe pageant. And they were trying to set him up with, some beautiful women to, entrap him, do the usual thing. And George was able to research and associate a lot of the people that put together this crocus, the building itself, and then manage the events, tying them to the ones that were trying to set up Trump with the PP dossier and Christopher Steele and all that. So, and then, one of the themes that you run across, that I've followed, George now for about 5 years, and there's always the necessity to get rid of the DNA. So things that happened in the crocus, they'll never know now because they burned the whole building up. And so, is it clean up on aisle 7? That's what George is suggesting, and that's my favorite theory so far. That's all I got. Is I think George has put together a pretty good theory, and that just goes back to the old question of, who's really fighting who. Are the Russian people so mad at the Ukrainian people that they've got to go to war? No, this is about the big money behind the scenes, and there are definitely, there's a Game of Thrones going on, and these people want the throne and are willing to do just about anything to get it, and then to cover up what they've done. So that's what I think is probably the best theory I've heard so far on the tragedy in Moscow. No, it wasn't just four guys. It wasn't what was it, 12 guys with box cutters or something like that in 9/11? No, it wasn't that.
Yeah, I'm going to be, over the coming weeks, continue to have people on my podcast to explore this. The different angles that I've seen. We had the U.S. Embassy put out March 7th an alert telling U.S. citizens in Russia to avoid large gatherings.
Yeah.
That was the last alert until the March 22nd alert about the actual attack. So that kind of suspicious. Some people say that this attack was supposed to happen earlier, which again could point to the West. Then Victoria Nuland late last year say we'll get surprises for Russia. And then in February last month, she came out again and saying we need to accelerate asymmetric warfare. So again, you can sort of point to a trend there. And I've got a guest who's pointing. There's some people I've seen, the World War Now folks, Conrad, I think it's Franz, I forget his last name. I've had him on my TNT show. He's taught, we have to explore everything. One avenue, this is a more esoteric view, that maybe it was some sort of occult globalist elite ritual, and because the band that was supposed to play is called Picnics or something, and they're very kind of like rock occultish, and maybe there's some sort of globalist, satanic ritual, or closer to what you say. We got another guest that says, the place was owned by some Azerbaijani businessman or something, and so you could have, an Israel, Turkey, Azerbaijan, Central Asia angle there, or the Russian states. People are pointing out a lot of the videos that are coming out. It's always interesting how they show us these videos for these types of events, and they're always so grainy, and it's just like,
Yeah.
so what's going on here? So I don't know.
Speaking of video, I was just watching Edward Slavsquat, our friend Riley Wagaman's post on Substack this morning, and he is posting some very interesting video. It's very hard to see, but it looks like there's security guards just kind of wandering around nonchalantly while all the shooting is going on. And that sure does make one think, that there's a whole lot of stuff that we don't see. But in other words, I think that it is something that was controlled, planned, and executed professionally, and that I do like George's theory about cleanup on aisle 7.
But couldn't they, if it was cleanup on aisle 7, couldn't they have done it in a simpler way than do it? I don't know. This is kind of
You got to blow up a big building, man. I mean, you got to burn up a big building. It depends on
I
where.
mean, they could have just set fire to it when there was not an event, and just say, "Oh, the fire started and burned it down." I don't know.
But then, again, the other aspect of it is who was killed, and were the people that were killed people that needed to be eliminated for some reason, and that again that's beyond my ability to suss it out. But I think George is hinting, or that there were people that knew things that had to get eliminated, and somehow they were either induced or gotten to go to the crocus, just as Trump was.
But then another consequence, unintended or intended, would be look at the rhetoric now in the media. So what this event does is escalation. Putin comes out and says, the West says it's a Russian false flag, the Western papers. Putin comes out and says, we know it's not ISIS. Who did it? And so what this effectively, cui bono, right? Who benefits? So, one unanswered question in that regard would be, then this is escalating the East-West, and the Kremlin came out over the weekend saying we are now switching to war rhetoric. Dmitry Peskov saying, Reuters reported that we're starting to use the term war. We are at war now with America, which they didn't do that before. Actually, in the
They
article,
didn't say America, did they?
no, I can pull up. I've got it on
You might
my
have said the West or
Telegram feed real quick. But before the special military operation, here it is. It says Russia regards itself to be at war due to the West's intervention on Ukraine's side, the Kremlin said, shifting the language it uses to describe the conflict in an apparent move to prepare Russians for a longer and harder struggle. But inside Russia, where people have been told for the past 2 years to refer to the war in Ukraine as a special military operation, a phrase designed to underline the initially limited nature of the conflict, they represent a departure and look like part of a shift to prepare people mentally for a conflict which may require more sacrifices from them. We are in a state of war. Yes, it started out as a special military operation, but as soon as this group was formed, when the collective West became participant in this on the side of Ukraine, it became a war for us. And I think it went on to say that, up until now, they were trying to caution Russian diplomats and people not to use the term war, like as if because they didn't want to go to war with the West, but you just see the West keeps poking the bear, and that's Russia, how Russia traditionally has behaved, right, with Napoleon and Hitler, and it's just like, look, we've it's not our first rodeo here, we don't want to do it again, but
and then from a devil's advocate side against the idea that it was a cleanup operation, or some of the other ideas, it could also just be a false flag, that as along what you were just saying, that Putin needed a Maine, or remember the Maine, a flash, the assassination of of Crown Prince Ferdinand, or just the Pearl Harbor, an event that, a black swan event, if you will, that will change people's attitude in a big way. Yeah, we don't know yet. But to me, I haven't said British yet, but I think there's a British hand in this.
All roads lead to London. Yeah, it's early. We need some more days and weeks as news, some pieces come out, and you have to scan the Russian media sphere and English, and we have to also look at this from a Western and non-Western perspective. I'm gonna see if I can get Yuri Roshka back on and talk to Riley and other folks like this to get differing perspectives. So yeah, it's hard to say.
I do want to hear after Yuri Roshka has a little bit of time to think about it, what he has to say. That's a great source, and I appreciate your connecting me to him. He's a brilliant man, and I really enjoyed interviewing him, and I hope he'll come back soon. As I told you the last time, I'm still immersed in The Sleeper Agent, this book about biowarfare emanating from the early 20th century, and the legacy of it. It turns into being Lyme disease and all these chronic diseases, and even HIV and a number of other things that are just tearing our people apart. It looks to me like the author Adam Finnegan has found the smoking gun, and it is the weaponization of ticks, Lyme disease, and these horrible viruses that come from animals. They don't jump to people voluntarily or in nature, but they do get converted by evil people in laboratories, passing them through many, many generations of different animals. It's a horrific story, but it's one to me it smacks of the truth, and so that's where my energy is going. My wife produces a podcast at McDuff Lives podcast now, where we are producing our readings and comments from the book and interviewing the author. I am totally immersed in it, and while it's depressing and frightening, it's nice to get a feeling that that you've got somebody that has a handle on the truth. It's an amazing book. So anyway, I'm sure you haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but it was published in December. It's called The Sleeper Agent, and it just tears a new, in public health theory.
Yeah, I've bookmarked it. Now that I'm not on TNT anymore, at least for now, I'm going to be hopefully reading more. Actually, I've got a podcast today. I don't know if you know him, Dr. Joe Lee.
Oh, cool.
Do you know of him, Joe Lee, MD?
Joe Lee, MD, is somebody that is very exciting. I'm sure you're going to have a very exciting and interview. I have watched him. I have followed him on Twitter, and then I have unfollowed him on Twitter, and then I've followed him again, because at the same time he's both brilliant and annoying. If I may just say it frankly, the guy is so angry. He is, and maybe he's mellowed out, but I'm talking about when I was first investigating what the hell's going on with this pandemic, and ran into him, and I thought, finally, here's somebody that's willing to just sit there and tell you the honest truth, right straight to your face, and not pulling any punches. And I think that's his attitude. I think he's probably right about things, but I have, again, kind of veered off into a different direction. So great. I mean, and if you get a chance to plug this Sleeper Agent book, Adam, because somebody smart like him to analyze what this book says would be a valuable interview indeed. So anyway, I do know him, and I encourage people to check him out. Is he still on Twitter? Sometimes he gets banned.
No, he's still on Twitter. And what had happened? I think months ago, I invited him onto my TNT show, and then he responds after I'm no longer on TNT, and I'm like, "Well, come on, then my podcast." And again, because I try, I talk to so many people, I can't keep up with. With some people, just surface level with what's going on with them. And then I did see him posting. He was talking smack against Robert, a whole bunch of people, Robert Malone, JJ Couey, who I've interviewed, and it's kind of like I try to separate the two. I don't like to get into the dramas of there's infighting, and I'm like,
me too. I don't want to get into it. I mean, if JJ Couey is pissed off at somebody, fine, but that doesn't make a good show. Be pissed off. But
I would just I just want to get his take
into it.
Yeah, I just want to get Joe's take on the biosecurity state, COVID, and all that, and then maybe in passing, if he's got a comment of like why he's angry with some of these people, but it's just like It's as we say in Spanish, telenovelas, soap opera stuff, and I'm kind of like, and I think some of it serves the elites. It's just having divide and conquer, right? And it's just like you want to be talking about ideas, right? You know that quote about small-minded people talk about people, and that's what again, that's what my podcast has always been about, the ideas. That's why I never even put my name initially. No one knew my name as the host, and I was just like, it's just my guest and the idea. So we'll see what happens.
I've had JJ on my show once or twice, and I always enjoy him. And I think he's a brilliant biologist, and his theory about the infectious clones and all, I think, was really holds water. It was really good. And I of course Mark Kulak at Housatonic Live. He's another great source for COVID and Lyme disease and all kinds of connections that he has, in particular with the fentanyl crisis and how that interplays with the statistics that are purportedly COVID deaths. They might very well be fentanyl deaths for all we know, because they play with the statistics. And that's Mark Kulak at Housatonic Live, another colleague I've worked with for a number of years. So yeah, I'm with you. I don't want to get into it. I I think Dr. Malone is a FRAUD. I think, and I don't, but I'm not going to throw that punch. I just sit back and watch him do his thing. But the idea that he was an early COVID victim at the Boston thing in March of 2020, and I mean, there's just a lot of fishy stuff, and I don't mind saying it's fishy. I don't hate him. I just say I don't believe this stuff.
Yeah, I'm I don't feel strong enough to call, well, almost no one outright like a fraud. Like because again, I'd have to spend days and weeks of my time and energy and resources digging into the life of a Robert Malone, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's just, for me, that's not so interesting. And so my view is, I'm skeptical about everyone, a lot of people. So I'm not, I can't say Robert Malone is a fraud because I don't know. And I think there's a lot of info that we don't have to maybe definitively say something like that. And so I'm just keeping in the back of my mind, very skeptical about certain people, but I can't just go out and start calling all these people names.
But I'm just going to put it out there that I think that a lot of the reasons that we get fishy stories, or the feeling that we're not being told everything, is because we are not being told everything, and that at some very high level, the facts of the biological warfare that has been permeated through our biology and causing us all of these increasingly awful diseases and deaths and cancer. They don't want to talk about it. So they keep, saying, well, let's make a big issue about masks, or let's make a big issue about jabs, or but they don't want us to do the digging that has been done and finally coming out by Finnegan in the sleeper agent. So
Yeah, that's a good point. Are we streaming now on Pentagon Tube, YouTube?
yes, we are, and
Okay, then I have to, I
welcome
guess,
all you
color.
E3s, and help you have a happy cubicle day.
I will color my language, but this later this week, I'm interviewing some guy, and this is what I like. I sometimes get meet people who are professionals in an area, but you've never heard of them. And so I already over the weekend had a preliminary chat with this guy. I think he's British, um, or he's out in the UK, and we're going to talk for like a couple hours on. He's got a fascinating theory on what what this whole thing is about, Great Reset and COVID, and how it's linked to like energy and resources, and what's more of the truth underlying the climate change thing. And he discussed what you're talking about now, um what the Pentagon juice was meant to do to people, that basically it was to lower the population, but it was to get people to do it themselves, right? And it goes back to that occult elite thing where they get you to do it yourself. It's not like they're not going to force it on you. It's just you know how they talk about predictive programming. It's like according to their own rules, they have to like let you in on it so they don't get bad karma or something. And so that's going to be a fascinating um discussion. So yeah, and now we're seeing all this cancer stuff. Like I don't know if I mentioned to you, some of my former colleagues, where I used to work here. There, one guy 5 months ago got two heart attacks, two light heart attacks. He's okay for now.
Yeah.
A friend visited us. She's like in her 50s, Mexican science teacher. She had to be out of work for 4 months. She got some insane autoimmune disorder. She couldn't speak. Her mouth was completely inflamed and her head was like inflamed. And from now, she's like for life damage. She has to take medicines. And I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking like, I was thinking of telling her, well, I think you and I know what it is, right? They were forced to take the thing, and they just can't. They don't. They can't. And then she says that because her immune system is low now, she can't get, I guess, further vaccinated. And I'm just thinking, I'm like, are you serious? Like that's literally what? So you're complaining you can't get more, and you're not putting two and two together that's actually what's Stockholm syndrome. I don't know. It's tough. Yeah, it's tough to witness now. Your former colleagues, friends, and family now. More and more, you see. I'm seeing it now. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, I'm an example, and I can just say anti-parasiticals. I highly, highly recommend to anybody that's suffering from this to get wise to things like Fenben and IVM, and don't be afraid of it. It won't hurt you, as far as I know. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but don't hesitate either. To me, that's and then nutrition. I mean, everybody's got their own ideas about what is proper nutrition, but when you find out what it is, make sure and stick to it, and don't have the pork rinds, and don't go to McDonald's, and don't do all the crazy things, but make sure you get a lot of fresh vegetables and fresh fruit. And gosh, it's so important. That's what they don't want us to know, is that the body runs on a certain fuel, and different fuel is not right. But I know that everybody has their own idea. Plus, they love their food, and they have these comfort foods and things like that, and ice cream and all. But especially once you get cancer, it's like, no, I ain't eating that no more, no way, because that's so anti-parasiticals and nutrition are the only two things that I would say as far as trying to take care of these horrible problems. But in terms of where does it come from, uh, there's a doctrine that they call immune tolerance. Immune tolerance means that your immune system tolerates pathogens. It doesn't stop them. It has gotten exhausted, it's worn out, and it can't do the work anymore that would help you fight the toxin. So when they give you a jab, they're trying to stimulate your immune system against a virus. But what she's saying is that she can't stimulate her immune system against the virus anymore because the immune system has been so beaten down that it just can't take it anymore. And so, this is what, it's taken me, solid study of about 5 weeks now to get a handle on what the Sleeper Agent book is really saying. But it is a intentional, systematic destruction of the immune system of the entire population. And that has been going on since the 1940s.
Or earlier 1800s. I'm looking forward to. I've got the book in Kindle, Dissolving Illusions. Suzanne Humphreys and Roman, I forget his last name. The 10th anniversary edition is about to come out. 200 extra pages. I think it's like total 600 pages, and a coffee table edition. I'm like, I'm gonna buy the physical of those two, because I got halfway through the Kindle version, and it's just like they've got from the 1800s, like primary source quotes of the beginnings of vaccination, and it's just like, it's insane. It's completely insane. I have friends asking me now, they're having babies, and I'm like, if you ask me, like, I would not let them anywhere. I would not inject them at
No,
all,
no,
at all.
I that's one reason I would want to have a weapon, because no, you're not getting near my baby with one of those. So it is very serious, and that's why I think the facts have got to come out on the table, and lots of theories out there, and lots of great thinkers out there, but until you study what Eric Traub did to weaponize the biology of, not just humans and bats and mice, but nature. It's stunningly depressing. But for somebody that like's been studying this COVID thing for what, 5 years now, and can't figure it out, you start seeing something that makes sense, because it was a world war. The parties involved in that war, it was a war of genocide and extinction. I mean, it's not just the Holocaust; it's everything. It's we wanted to destroy uh, the Soviet Union entirely, just completely destroy it after World War II. And the Soviets said, no, we don't want to get destroyed, and we're going to do. We don't have the weapons the West has, but we do have a lot of good scientists, and we're going to do some biological warfare. And so this guy, Eric Traub, who was a German scientist trained at the Rockefeller Institute, by the way, was captured while he was making his bioweapons against America and against Russia, and the Russians got it. And then they turned him into a Soviet agent that was able to do his dirty work for what, 30 years, from 1951 to his death in the 70s, 20 years anyway. Anyway, I'm sorry, I don't want to take up all our time gushing about this book, but it just absolutely blown my mind, Hrvoje. It really has.
Yeah, and I think, again, there are wider things at play with all this stuff, and again, my fear is that, lately I've been trying to boil things down, and again, it comes down to global control and democracy without borders. I've interviewed one of the co-founders, he really, he really believes world government can work, and he's pushing it. And they put out an article talking about how climate change is the pretext to create the infrastructure for a world government. Literally, they say planetary commons. We got the climate crisis, so we need a world government to solve that crisis, or public health, right? Public health, pandemics, disease, world government will solve that, or the threat of nuclear war. Oppenheimer and some of the scientists way back when were talking about that. And so I think that was part of the movie that came out. I haven't seen it yet. I got to go watch it. But even as the movie came out last year, Oppenheimer, articles again started popping up from these globalist institutions saying, we should have world government to solve these are some of the three main threats. And so I think all this biosecurity stuff that you're talking about, yes, it's there are different agendas, but again, ultimately they want to use it to push a global control system, unify the governments, and then implement the technocratic controls to manage us like animals, right? And like the cattle that get injected nonstop, and then what JJ Couey and others talk about on top of that, the transhuman aspirations of the elites then want to farm us, experiment with us to, in their fool's errand of trying to discover the alchemy for immortality, which I believe is not possible, but they will destroy humanity trying to achieve that.
Little bitty Lego pieces. Our friend Professor Hamamoto used to use the Lego pieces as a metaphor, and they're looking for the tiniest little piece, so that once they find that little piece, they can put it together in whatever they want. They can make the monsters or the skyscrapers or the big rockets. They can do whatever they want when they find that little bitty piece. But then, of course, the scientists do this Heisenberg principle thing on them and say, no, you can define space or you can define time, but you can't define them both at once. You never can get that precise, and that's where you get into, how many digits are there to pi, and where is the universe that all those digits live in, and it gets really esoteric fast. It's enjoyable, but it's all to me, it's just kind of speculative.
By the way,
Let's talk about you for a second, if you don't mind. I've heard you say you've left TNT, and what are your plans now?
TNT Radio. Yes. Look, I love TNT Radio. It's, absolutely amazing. 2 years. I was getting paid, always on time. I was very content with the salary. 2 years doing what I love, talking to so many people. The archive is there. I'm gonna upload it on my Substack, Geopolitics and Empire Substack and website. I'm just curious. I'm gonna count like how many people I interviewed. You were one of them on TNT, but I just got burned out. On the Ides of March, that was my last broadcast. 2 years I completed, and I just couldn't do it anymore because it was, and I almost never took a break. I had broadcasted from Croatia to around the US to around Mexico for 2 years. I went to Croatia for 3 months in 2022 and was broadcasting from 1 to 4 a.m. For 3 months. And then on the weekend, we fly back to Mexico so I don't skip a beat. And I just trying to find so many guests. And basically I'm doing everything myself. So, they left me alone, which is great. Here's a mic, here's your pay, you do the show. If you're responsible, you got your mic, you do everything professionally. Never gave me any problems or censorship, TNT. But yeah, I just can't. Trying to find 10 to 15 to 20 guests a week. It's just, and then you're burning people out. You're burning people out. So I got to be the producer. I got to find the guests, the research new guests, book them, prep the shows, do the show. I don't have to produce or do the technical stuff, but I'm like, I can't anymore. So I just decided I'd be happy to come back again at some point, or maybe do something like part-time, but
it seems to be a kind of a very fast moving, they really want to keep the excitement going, like keep the pot boiling. And, so you got to have your adrenaline up and your pulse up, and I enjoyed very much being a guest on the show, and I certainly wish them well. And they're doing good because they're making a lot of they do sell ads, and that's the key to surviving in this world if you want to be a professional YouTuber.
Well, they're not quite there with the ads, you see, because they're in the startup phase, and so they've got an investor that's backing them. Actually, that was one of the things recently. They canceled the weekend shows because another investor pulled out. But so they have they're lean at the moment, but they have the ad sections, but those are not. Those are like, a lot of them are government ads. I think they get some money from that, but they're not, they're building it up. So now they're in that build phase, where then soon they're going to ask for more investors and I guess sponsors, and then try to monetize with memberships and I don't know what else. And so they're doing great. They got great hosts, world-class guests all the time, all the people that you and I know, big names. But for me, it becomes quantity over quality. And even my own listeners say they prefer my Geopolitics and Empire than the TNT because it's kind of like fast food, McDonald's. It's too fast.
For those
minutes.
of us that want to get the depth. That's one thing I did notice.
Yeah, and it's just nicer with, I can sit down with someone for 30 to 60 minutes or sometimes longer, and we just get that uninterrupted deep dive of my guests' views in one go. And that's just, yeah. And now I can take a day off. I can take a week off if I have to, and I don't have that pressure. And so now I'll have a little more time. I'm busy like this week or next, but now I wanna finally read your book and then get you on Geopolitics and Empire to discuss uh your book. Finally, you see, because I've just barely been able to survive the last 2 years doing TNT, and now it's like I can
Uh,
finally read it.
I appreciate that very much, and I hope I sent you a PDF.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. And it's available on Kindle and Amazon. It's called McDuff Lives. It's a story of my father and his career, and very interesting career he had from going to private school in Connecticut, Loomis Academy, and then to Harvard. Columbia Midshipman School, became a Navy lieutenant, shipped out on General MacArthur's flagship in World War II, and was there for the landing in Leyte. The ship got bombed by or hit by a kamikaze, and they barely kept it afloat. They had over 130 guys dead from that. When he finished the war, he went to law school, joined the FBI, and was a close advisor and an assistant to J. Edgar Hoover for a number of years. And then he went to the Pentagon, where he was the head planner for special operations under John F. Kennedy until Kennedy's death. Quite an interesting career, and I tell it in that book called McDuff Lives. You can get it on Amazon. And yeah, I really appreciate it. I'm trying to get folks like you that have the general knowledge of the world to dig into the book, because it's not a kid's book. It's a book about reality, and helps. I had a lot of help writing it, but now that I put it together, I feel good. And so anyway, that'll be great. Thank you. And I wanted to ask you a little bit more about yourself, just personally. When you had an incredible education, and then you had all these opportunities to go to different capitals and around the world and everything. When you finished school, what was your goal? And how are you doing now? And have you changed your goal? And what does Geopolitics and Empire look like in the future? Are you looking to be, in other words, a host, or are you looking to be an influencer, or perhaps a government official? What kind of things are you thinking about in terms of your career?
I guess I'll go work backwards with that. I don't know. I'm at this stage in my life. Um, there's people. I should probably be making more uh money. I don't know, but I'm just kind of content because our house is paid off, and we've met our basic needs. And I just value more time now.
Yeah.
I see people in the hamster wheel, friends and family. They're running that wheel, and they got time for nothing. And I'm like, no, no. I'm impressed. My kid is 5, and my kid's already reading, bilingual. I mean, they're homeschooled, and then you compare that with others that are going to public school. They're not, reading or speaking a second language, or she's started playing violin and piano. Like, it's nuts. And so, family, faith, time. I value more that than finance. And so, my goal now is to try to build out my podcast so that I can live from it. To have a minimal, like a decent salary, nothing crazy. I'm a minimalist. That's kind of my goal right now, and I've been inspired with a number of people since I left TNT over the past 2 or so weeks that have become paid subscribers on my Substack. That's and that have bought, donated, and I'm like, it's impressive. Like, I got a guy who sends me an email from Europe. He's a retired sovereign analyst. Like a professionals who listen to me, and it's like, that's encouraging. And so my goal now is to see if I can do it. Give myself a year or two to see if I can make Geopolitics and Empire podcast my, what do you call it, my main income. And I'm planning now. I have more. I didn't have time with TNT to open my merchandise store. And then I want to do maybe live streams like you do once or twice a week, where I just rant on the news, and then do weekly calls with paid subscribers, like an hour call, just shooting the breeze with supporters and things like this. Put it together, give people reason to become paid subscribers and that sort of thing. So that's where I'm at. The government, no, I never want to go work for government ever again. I'm done with that. And so, and if the podcast doesn't work, maybe get a part-time gig, or just go back to full-time work. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't know.
Well, that sounds good, and then congratulations on your 5-year-old and all the great things that your child is doing. I'm sure that's the center of your life, and wonderful to hear that you've kind of accomplished getting your nest paid for already. I wish I was there. We're not. We're still working off the old debt, even though we're paying with our Social Security. We still got the debt. And that's where most people get stuck is with debts. It's horrible. Once you get beyond a certain point, it's almost impossible to have any free time at all. And that's getting worse and worse in the world. It's one of the things that we hope to solve, you and I, as we try to uncover the real truth behind what looks like this impenetrable deep state. But, as far as totalitarianism and the government, the world government and the topics that you mentioned, of course, that's been on my mind for years, too, is that it does look like, Elon Musk is building a space fence, right? We're all going to be under constant surveillance. We're going to get social credit scores, and we're not going to be able to buy anything unless we are very, very good people, according to the norms that are set for us by Big Brother, and physically imprisoning us, but also taking away our food supply. They don't even want us to have gardens anymore. They want us, everything's got to come from the approved, mega food, Archer Daniels or whoever the big ones are. It's and then they want us to not even know whether they've genetically modified the corn or whatever it is they're making. They don't want to tell us anything.
It gets better. There was an article from last month that I just found yesterday. I mean, it's literally Soylent Green. NewScientist.com says our human ancestors often ate each other, and for surprising reasons. Forget about, and I'm in my mind, it's like, forget about eating the bugs. You will eat each other. And so it's like they're trying to paint in a more positive, humane light cannibalism. And so it's like, I think we have to take them at their word. A lot of this culture that they put out in this second half of the 20th century, Soylent Green, Terminator, that's the Matrix. That's literally their vision. You mentioned Elon Musk. There was a clip, Joe Allen, who I've met and had on my podcast and TNT show, who does Steve Bannon's War Room. He's the transhumanist expert. He posted this clip of Elon Musk talking about what Elon Musk said in this interview. It's literally the Matrix. Literally, Elon Musk said that they want basically everyone to be plugged into the Neuralink and have the high speed connection internet to their brains, and that's going to improve life and humanity. I'm like, wait, so connecting us to the internet that's literally the Matrix. Literally, what New Scientist is talking about is literally Soylent Green, like literally. And so, Skynet, you talked about SpaceX, Starlink, and Skynet is becoming self-aware. They're rolling out these autonomous drone swarms. Recently they were talking, Forbes just talked about these killer autonomous drone technologies. It's going to become, or no, I don't know if you saw in Israel that clip that came out earlier last week. they took out 4 Palestinian youth. They were just walking. It's a
Yeah.
crazy clip, and they just disappeared. Like just the puff of smoke, a drone bomb clicks. And Edward Snowden commented on this, that it's someone can just click and you're gone. You're gone. The algorithm, boom, drone comes, you disappeared. You're dead. And it's just like that's where we're headed. It's completely insane.
Well, this again has been a product of my study of the book, The Sleeper Agent, in that now I'm willing to look at it from a different point of view. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying that it's also possible, knowing the incredibly crazy term military intelligence, that term, the oxymoron of all oxymorons, that the military sponsored the creation of bugs that destroy your immune system and are so tightly manufactured as to defy treatment. And the militaries of the world, whether it's ours or the British or the Germans or the Soviets or the Chinese or whoever, they look at it as a weapon. It's like, if we have to, instead of blowing them up with nukes, which would destroy the soil and, all the infrastructure be gone and everything, why don't we just, give them this sleeper agent, this biological time bomb that's gradually going to destroy their nation, their society, their population, and then we can just come in and take over. And militaries have been doing this. And now, especially with people like the Dulles brothers, who you and I have talked about many times, they don't want it to be known that they were the ones that were dropping the bug bombs on on the Korean soldiers in Korea. They don't want anybody to know that, because those bug bombs may be still in our circulating in our human biology. They don't want it to be known so badly that they're going to try to technologically shut down all of our reasoning, all of our ability to talk to each other off the record. Everything is going to be shut down in order for them to keep a lid on this, what's essentially a lot of horrible, horrible, bad decisions that were made by people with from defense departments and military intelligence, quote unquote. That I think is possible. In other words, it's not that they want to control every little bit of our lives. It's just that they're afraid that if they don't control everything, then they're going to be busted. And like George Bush Sr. said, if the people ever find out what we've been doing, they will tar us and feather us and hang us by the nearest tree. And that's, I think, another way to look at it is, it's not just that there's a diabolical desire to control everybody, but it's also fear of us realizing that, hey, you guys did this and we're not happy.
I'm not sure if we'd revolt. There's an interesting Twitter account, Nelly Tells, and we follow each other. She says yesterday, I used to believe that once people lost everything, well, then they would revolt, but it's not true. It's just another fairy tale. Sure, a small handful will. They were always raring to go, but held back because they would prefer any other way than that, but not enough, not nearly. And to what you were saying, that sort of, gels with my biblical Christian worldview, where these elites are not, 100% perfect, and that a lot of their exploits, what you've been discussing, they lead. It's humanity will self-destruct. To borrow from James Hetfield and Metallica, we're hardwired to self-destruct, and all of these things that they're doing, nukes, biowarfare, creating this complex global financial system that at the end of the day, it goes out of control. And it's like the four horsemen of the apocalypse. It's just we will self-destruct. We're gonna, blow ourselves up. So and the elites, they can't even control that. It gets out of their control, and it just all leads to us basically self-destructing. No.
Yeah. Do you like Bob Marley?
Yeah, I used to listen. Yeah, yeah.
One Love, one of my favorite songs that has a lyric that some say it's all a part of it. We have to fulfill the book.
Yep.
And when you talk about the apocalypse and biblical, you know,
Redemption song. That's redemption song. It's
it's
actually my favorite song. And
yeah.
there's rumors. It's not true. I'd be happy if it was true. That where they say maybe on his deathbed he repented and accepted Christ. He died of, I believe, cancer. Right. So
Oh, yeah, that's a whole show there.
or not.
My dad. Well, the story about William Colby's kid presenting him with a pair of boots that had a little piece of wire in it that stuck into his toe, and then a few months later, he's playing soccer and he starts, failing to be able to run, and the next thing you know, he's diagnosed with cancer. I it sounds a lot like something that happened to my dad that we don't really have time to get into. But no, I think Bob Marley was murdered with cancer, just like I think my dad was murdered with cancer. Uh, that's my belief. I could be wrong.
I didn't know anything about that at all. That's
Yeah,
fascinating.
yeah.
Is there?
William Colby's son, who is still alive, I think, supposedly did present Marley with.
Wait, you're not talking about Elbridge Colby?
No, no. I don't remember the young man. He's probably my age, 70 or so. But anyway,
I believe he's got or
yeah.
maybe a different sons, because there's a William Colby, the CIA director. Right now, you've got Elbridge Colby, who I follow. He's probably like in his 40s or 50s now. He's a political analyst. So I mean, maybe it's another brother. I'm not sure.
I'm just putting into Google Colby, Marley, and Boots. And what we got was 33 years ago, Bob Marley passed. Why did the son of CIA Director William Colby give Bob a pair of boots? And the story is Carl Colby, the boy.
Okay.
The son's name was Carl. No, so it's not Elbridge, it's Carl.
Interesting. Yeah.
So
But
yeah,
but Bob, you could see Bob Marley throughout his work. He always littered it with Christian, I think, stuff. No.
I'm just saying that there are a lot of people that think that because the Bible is literally the roadmap for the future, some say it's all a part of it. We have to fulfill the book, that they're willing to sit, wait back and say, okay, well, there's stuff going on, the devil's doing his thing, and, God's going to do this, and the Jews are going to do this, and we have to wait until, this stuff sorts out. And to me, that is a kind of a cop out of personal responsibility, that, if I got to do everything I can to stop, this horrible public health crisis that we're facing, and these cancers that your friends, I'm so sorry about. These things are going to happen to everybody in every family. And until we face up to the fact that, yeah, it probably was military programs that are still secret that generated a lot of the pain and horror that we're facing with these diseases. That's what I hope, is that we can face the reality, even if it's so bad that we don't want to look at it.
Yeah, I would just say what you just said, that has what you said about that view, about what some imply about the biblical worldview, is that's actually not biblical. Because the Bible says, my view is that that's that prophecy that's projected to happen. It's not like that. It was just, the prophecy is basically like God knows everything, so he's like, this is what's going to happen. This is what in the future humanity is going to bring about, and that's just like what's going to happen. But the Bible talks about loving your neighbor, being peacemakers, right? Doing good works. And so that's the opposite of just laying down and waiting for it. So there are people who do that. And I think, no, you have to be active and doing good, helping the poor, creating better economy, creating better, freer political systems, which means resisting tyranny. And so, we all have to be active in this world. Yeah.
Yeah. And we couldn't cover so many topics in just an hour and 1 minute if we weren't crazy. We took on a whole lot today, and I do appreciate it, Hrvoje. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Until next time.
And all the best with Geopolitics and Empire. And make sure and check out the Substack over on Substack of Geopolitics and Empire and your host, Hrvoje Morić. Thanks again. We'll see you tomorrow. I'll be here at 11 a.m. Eastern Time with another reading from The Sleeper Agent.